I've been working my way through all sorts of Asuka Rin works lately, and when I saw that she was in a Nakata Hideo movie that reunited her with Matsuyama Airi from Higurashi, well, that was all I needed to know. I mean, really, what else do you need to know? That's a horror all-star lineup right there. Well, if you've seen the title of this video, then you could probably guess that I should have known a little more before I went in, because what the actual hell did I even watch? A little background. The Woman Who Keeps a Murderer came out in 2019. As I just mentioned, it was directed by Nakata, who shouldn't need an introduction here, but just in case, he's the guy that directed that little-known movie you may have heard of, Ringu. It's based on a novel that came out in 2010, but I haven't read that, so I can't say how well it adapts it or not. I won't be focusing on that at all, just this purely as a movie. And what a movie it is. I don't mean that in a good way. I don't even know what to say. How can you describe this movie? I went in knowing very little about it, other than it starred some of my favourite actresses and was directed by a rather well-known horror director. That should be enough, right? Well, this is one movie where I really should have prepared myself before going in. It was, to put it kindly, not exactly what I was expecting. The movie is horror, technically. I will at least give it that. But literally over a quarter of it is incredibly awkward and, to be honest, not very sexy sex scenes. Over a quarter. I timed it. This isn't a terribly long movie to begin with, coming in at roughly 80 minutes. And over a quarter of that is scenes that somehow managed to kill any attraction I otherwise might have felt. That's a skill. Although, not a skill I'm sure any director should be aiming for. Now, some of you may or may not know that Nakata, like many Japanese directors, got his start in these pink films that pretty much kept the industry in business back in the day. He's certainly no stranger to it, and he even made White Lily with Din a few years prior. That was part of Nick Katsu's Pink Film Revival project, where a certain number of sex scenes are required per hour, but other than that, directors are pretty much allowed to tell whatever story they want. So, you would think that, with his history, Nakata would do fine with a project like this. I don't know what to say. It was horrible. I don't want to write a whole review on why these scenes weren't just terrible, but even incredibly inappropriate at times, but they pretty much killed the movie for me. Your mileage may vary, of course. I'm sure some people will find them great, especially if you know beforehand that this is what you're getting into. I'm sure a lot of people watch the movie deliberately just to see some famous actresses drop their clothes. Lin, in particular, spends more of the film unclothed than she does otherwise. But that aside, it just wasn't a good movie. Expectations might be the key here. I was expecting, at the very least, a horror movie. I genuinely don't care if there's nudity or adult scenes or anything like that. These things can definitely enhance a film if done well, and they add to the story being told, but they really, really didn't here. It felt more like an excuse for Nakata to make a pink film again with some popular actresses and to hell with everything else. And this was unfortunate because the story seemed genuinely interesting. At its most basic, the story is about Lin's character Kyoko, who, spoiler alert, has multiple personalities. Each of these personalities is played by a different actress, and they often share scenes together as Kyoko goes over things with the various personalities in her head. They seem to have an arrangement where some of the personalities are allowed to take over and control her body for a while, but this can also be done without permission, meaning those in Kyoko's life, of which there aren't many people to begin with, might not always be strictly talking to Kyoko. It gets weird when one of these personalities is in love with Kyoko, and the movie basically opens with an excruciatingly long scene with the two of them on a kitchen table. I won't say more than that. If scenes like this are for you, fantastic, but I couldn't get past how damn awkward it was. The sound effects and all. Not really my thing. And that pretty much sets the tone for the movie. It's going to be weird, awkward, and kind of all over the place. The title, of course, refers to one of Kyoko's potential personalities. We have Naomi, who is the personality in love with Kyoko. We have Yukari, played by Matsuyama Airi, perhaps better known around these parts as Rena from Higurashi. And Yukari is basically the nightlife lover. I'll just say that. And then there's Haru, who is mentally still a child. See, Kyoko was abused as a child, and to cope, she developed these various personalities as she grew up. Naomi helps her deal with her fear of men. Yukari is the other side of that same coin. And Haru is the personality that wants to remain an innocent child forever, so she never has to face the pain that Kyoko did. But there's another personality, or at least hints of it, that is much darker. A murderer. A beast. Although the movie doesn't really get around to this until some point towards the end, that's kind of the whole point. There's a lot of build-up and incidents taking place around and towards Kyoko that will eventually break her and allow the beast, the fifth personality, to break free. Or will it? Well, considering the title of the movie, I think we all know how that'll go. As all this is happening, Kyoko builds and often destroys a relationship with her neighbour, Tajima, who is a rider who just happened to formerly be in love with a woman who was quite similar to Kyoko. In fact, Tajima wrote his first book based on this girlfriend, and Kyoko turns out to be a big fan of his work. The only work of his she hasn't read yet is that elusive first book that is no longer in print anywhere. So, Tajima lends her his personal copy, and she discovers the woman in it is very much like her. It also gives her hope, perhaps, of redemption. But can she heal her broken soul when the murderous personality is still potentially lurking somewhere inside her? If this all sounds interesting, great. But sadly, it's not really explored that well because of all the, well, awkward scenes I've spoken of. If you could cut all of those and only keep the bits that are absolutely vital to the story, well, you'd end up with something that's not even an hour long, which is also where this movie goes wrong. There's just not enough story for the already short length. I'm guessing that's why there's so many of the other scenes. It pads the running time out, although I wish they'd explored more of the actual story instead. I did a bit of research after watching the film, and apparently this was part of a project between Kadokawa and HappyNet to make a series of edgy genre films. Yes, they literally described them as edgy genre films in English. In an interview promoting the movie, Nakata mentioned how he didn't want people to complain that there weren't enough sex scenes, so they filmed far more than usual. So, thanks for that. And they originally considered having Nin play all of the personalities, but that would have made filming those scenes with the Naomi personality quite strange. So in the end they decided to cast other actresses instead. I mean, if anything could have made this film more awkward, it would have been Nin filming scenes like the dining room table all by herself, for sure. Should you watch this film? Well, you should definitely know that it's one of Japan's infamous pink films before going in. That perhaps would have helped with my expectations. Expect that a quarter of the film is going to be, honestly, not very sexy sex scenes. Sorry, Nakata. I laughed and cringed more than anything else. There is a good story hidden in there, but, well, it's hard to find at times with all the other nonsense going on. And, as usual, I had a look at some Japanese reviews after watching the film to see how it fared there. Seems fairly even across the board. Some who loved the film for what it was and nothing deeper than that, and others who were horribly disappointed like me that it was more adult than horror. The one constant was praise for Din's acting, which doesn't surprise me as she excels in anything that can make you feel bad for her. I swear it's her superpower. She has a face that drags you into the depths of hell with her and makes you feel secondhand pain like you didn't know was possible. Any film that's based around how sad Din can make you feel is always going to have some appeal to it. You can't fault that aspect. And, of course, there was a lot of disappointment over how terribly predictable the movie was. You really won't see anything new or groundbreaking here. You'll no doubt guess the ending as soon as you realise what the story is. It's broadcast over loudspeakers the entire time. There was one comment in particular that pretty much summed up exactly how I felt watching this movie, so let me end this review with it. I watched this movie because I like Asuka Din, but I feel like I get my heart broken every time. The erotic scenes were pretty hard, seriously, and the other 3 actresses were shot beautifully. But I don't think I'll watch this a second time. Only giving this 3 stars because of Din's hard work. But what about you guys? Have you seen this hot mess of a film? It certainly has people equally divided over whether it's worth watching or not. If you have seen it, let me know what you thought in the comments below. And if you haven't, and you're brave enough, go watch it and then come back and let me know what you thought. But stay safe guys, and I'll see you again next time.